I'd like to thank American Airlines, Bell Helicopter, Boeing, Toyota, the Air Power Foundation, L3 Technologies, John Ward, the AUSA member, Elbit Systems, and Janet Hanna for all supporting this event as gold or silver sponsors. I want to thank all of you. What you all have done over the past several years has been amazing. I want to thank the NDIA, Mike Dietz. I want to thank the AUSA, Colonels Hannum and Conness. I want to thank, most of all, Megellas for being here today. Please get around the round for Andy. And I'd like to thank all of you who served our nation in uniform. And if you would please stand and be recognized for your service, United States military. The hardest working man in philanthropy, who hosts more than 600 events like this a year, and the most generous man I know in this arena, and does an outstanding job and has been a big supporter of the America's Future series from its inception. Scott, thank you for being here.
Glasses are a very important part for our Master of Ceremonies, so he can read the names and the information that he has before him. Good afternoon and welcome. Delighted to welcome you to Brookhaven Country Club. This is always special. America's Future series that was begun a number of years ago. David, thank you. This was his vision, and he has certainly made it his mission. And as a result of all the wonderful people that have gathered in previous get-togethers like this, we thank them all, and we thank all of you. For those of you that we saw stand, we thank you for your service as well, and really appreciate your sharing this Thursday with us. I want to tell you a little something about the America's Future series, how it all came about and what it continues to do here in this great country that we all call home. America's Future series is a nonpartisan speaker series dedicated to helping make America a stronger, more noble, and certainly more generous nation. The volunteer leaders who founded and support its programs believe America is the greatest nation in the entire world and must remain the political, economic, and military leader of the free world. And to that end, our events focus on U.S. global competitiveness. Over the past 8 years, the AFS has held numerous events, hosted, led, and attended by roughly 25 Fortune 200 CEOs, prominent political, military, and educational leaders all across the country. These luminaries have come together to provide practical, innovative, and positive solutions for the most critical problems facing our nation. With their support, we have recognized those who support our military and the brave men and women who provide the security and freedom which makes the American way of life possible. These leaders have helped us direct and indirectly raise over $6 million in charitable donations. And we certainly appreciate all of you who are here today for your support of the America's Future series and the causes that it continues to support every single day. That said and done, I would like to introduce to you the gentleman that introduced me, David Hamilton, the founder and chairman of the America's Future series. David, thanks for all you continue to do, and thanks for putting this all together. You're way in the back. You got the cheap seats, huh? He's up in the bleachers there. All right. Thank you, David. Some of the people that we'll be hearing throughout the afternoon are here with us as well, but I'm going to take just a moment to introduce to you each and every one of them to you right now. You've already heard about the most decorated airman in the history of the 82nd Airborne. He is one of the neatest people I have ever met in my life, and believe it or not, he has already hit the century mark. He stands proud as an American at 101 years old, our dear friend, Megellas. Meggie, great to have you here. Another gentleman that you'll be hearing from shortly, he's a pilot at American Airlines, a captain, but maybe more importantly this afternoon, he is the recipient of the Megellas Award this year, our good friend Jim Palmersheim. Jim? Also with us, the President and CEO of the Association of the United States Army, General Carter Ham. the Chief of Staff of the National Defense Industry Association. We'd like to recognize Major General Jim Boozer. President of the Audie Murphy Chapter of the Association of the United States Army, Colonel Rich Canis. And also with us this noon, the Regional Director for the Association of the United States Army, Colonel J.P. Hogan. President of the Lone Star Chapter of the National Defense Industry Association, please welcome Mike Dietz. Now, just very quickly, let me go over the agenda here for today. We're going to have the Megellas Award coming up very, very shortly. Then we'll take a quick break for lunch, but this is a working lunch because we know many of you have lots of things to get to this afternoon, so we will continue on with our program during lunch. We've got our 5-star award presentations. That's always a very special part of this program. And then our symposium, moderated discussion, coming up a little later on this afternoon that I know many of you are involved in as well. But what I'm going to do right now as we kick it off is introduce to you a longtime friend. She is the chief economist of EarthX. She's also global economist for the East-West Institute and vice chairman of America's Future Series Advisory Board. Please put your hands together and welcome our good friend, Meredith Walker. Come on up.
Thank you, Scott. And thank you all so very much for being here today as we present the Megellas Award to his good longtime friend, Jim Palmersheim. It is my honor to tell you a little bit about Maggie Megellas, who just turned 101 years of age. Happy belated birthday, Maggie. James Maggie Megellas was born and raised in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, a son of Greek-American immigrant parents and a proud member of the city's ethnic Greek community. He attended Fond du Lac public schools and graduated from Ripon College in 1942. He accepted a commission as a second lieutenant infantry U.S. Army upon graduation and began his service in World War II. 4 years later, Megellas was acknowledged as the most decorated officer in the acclaimed 82nd Airborne Division and was discharged with the rank of captain. He continued serving as a citizen soldier in the Army Reserves and retired with the rank of lieutenant colonel. His awards include the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, Presidential Citation with Cluster, the Belgium Fourragère, 6 Campaign Stars, and the Master Parachutist Badge. He was selected by General James Gavin, the commanding general of the 82nd Airborne Division, to receive the Military Order of Wilhelm Orange Lanyard from the Dutch Minister of War in Berlin in 1945. Megellas was the first American to be honored with the award by the government of Holland. Maggie fought in the Italian and Western European campaign as a platoon leader. While still a first lieutenant, he was named company commander of H Company, 3rd Battalion, 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment in the waning days of the war. His most notable battle experiences included action in the Italian mountains near Anzio beachhead, his combat jump in Holland as part of Operation Market Garden, crossing of the Wall River under heavy German fire in broad daylight, and the Battle of the Bulge in January of 1945, when he single-handedly destroyed a German Mark V Panzer tank, armed only with his Thompson submachine gun and 2 Gammon grenades, and led his platoon to liberate the town of Harrisbach, Belgium, without the single loss of an American life. He finished World War II in the occupation of Berlin and led his company, the only company with which he served during all his World War II service, down 5th Avenue in New York City in the January 1946 Victory Parade. Maggie continued his service to our nation with the U.S. Agency for International Development for 32 years, holding assignments in Yemen, Panama, South Vietnam, and Colombia. During his assignment with USAID, he served 2 years in Vietnam, holding the equivalent rank of 2-star general, leading 4,000 soldiers and civilians from Vietnam and other nations in civil military relations. For this mission, he received a National Medal and Psychological Warfare Medal from the South Vietnamese government. But Maggie's service to our nation did not stop with his retirement from the State Department or the military. In his 80s, Maggie invested 5 years to research and write his autobiographical bestseller, All the Way to Berlin, a paratrooper at war in Europe. published in 2003 by Random House. This riveting chronicle details his first-hand experiences as a young infantry leader and those of his fellow combat soldiers in his outfit. In 2006, at the age of 89, Megellas visited the modern-day version of his World War II outfit, the 504th Parachute Infantry Regiment, then serving in Afghanistan, along the Pakistani border, wearing full body armor made specially for him. He shared with the troops his book, and over 5,000 troops received the book on that tour. He returned to Afghanistan on 2 other occasions, at Christmas in 2007 and September of 2008, to meet with soldiers and encourage the efforts of U.S. military personnel. And Maggie continues to receive honors for his service to community and the nation. In 2008, he was invited by the German government back to the town of Ludwigslust, where he was honored for liberating the Woblin concentration camp on May 2nd, 1945. He traveled with Holocaust survivor George Salton, who was liberated from that camp. He received the Daughters of the American Revolution Medal of Honor in 2010. Maggie and his World War II service are subjects of a 2013 World War II Foundation documentary film titled Maggie's War, a true story of courage, leadership, and valor in World War II, which airs nationally on PBS stations around the country. And I'd like to note that that was the day I met Maggie Megellas for the first time at the introduction of Captain Jim Palmersheim, when he hosted a screening of this marvelous documentary at the American Airlines C.R. Smith Museum. Maggie has returned to the Netherlands at the invitation of the Dutch government for the 70th commemoration of Operation Market Garden and crossed the Wall River once again in a rubber boat. Maggie received the American Veterans Center 2014 Audie Murphy Award, celebrated his 98th birthday back in March 11th, 2015. And that day, people asked him, "What is the secret to your long life?" And he said, "I have not finished my mission yet." And that day, he promised us to make it to 100. And so we are all very, very glad he has gone 1 year better than that promise, and 101. We are all still here with him today. He's been honored by the U.S. House of Representatives with a Capitol Hill reception. And after that reception, the interviewer asked him, "Maggie, what does this reception on Capitol Hill mean to you?" Speaker Paul Ryan attended, leading Democrats, leading Republicans, and Maggie said, "What means most to me is bringing people together." And I believe that's the true mission of his life, and one that Jim Palmersheim has carried on so very well. Remembering those who have served, honoring those who are no longer with us, and bringing us all together so we honor our military, our nation, and work together for our future. And I must also recognize Maggie's wife, Carol Megellas, who is here with him today. It has been his rock, his joy for, I won't even say how many years, Carol. Are we 67. I was going to get it wrong. 65? Yes. So just a marvelous long life marriage and partnership. And Maggie will now tell you about Jim Palmersheim. I think we have a microphone coming this way for Maggie. And while the microphone is on its way to Maggie, I will say that our previous recipients of the Megellas Award, which is given for service not only to our nation in times of battle, but to continued service to veterans. Our first was Admiral Pat Walsh, who is now working with Boeing, one of our 5-star award recipients today. Clint Bruce, Marcus Luttrell, Richard Carey, Roger Staubach, David Petraeus, and this year for Jim Palmersheim.
Thank you very much, Meredith, for that very kind introduction. I want to congratulate you for the depth you went in to find out all the little details about me. I think that's why you're a woman and I'm a man. Women have a tendency to look at the details of things where men kind of gloss over it. And in that respect, I think what my wife has said about me in her own words. She has told people here at gatherings that my husband around the house kind of mopes around and doesn't do very much at all. He doesn't feel well and doesn't do anything much. But once he's with his element, he's a different person. I'm here today in my element. All of you here to be congratulated because you all bring qualifications to these tables and to this event, which makes it what it is. And so therefore, I appreciate all of you who are here for what you contributed and what you've done for this. And I'm also highly honored to have the opportunity to present a long friend of some years, Jim Palmersheim. And I want to say something about him at the outset that kind of fixes our relationship. I've known him for some time, a good while. I've known him through American Skyball and American Skyball and Express. I've known him with the groups that he's taken of dependents out to celebrate winter and other events. And he arranges for all this and brings all these people together and does all these things and much more. But although I've known him all these years, and I've known that he is a man of some distinction and qualification, I never knew all the details about him, other than I knew about him with my relationship. One of the reasons for that is he never talked about himself very much. It was always about the people he was with and what he was doing with them and where they were going. I was always very much impressed about that, but I really didn't know about Jim Palmersheim per se. For example, his service in the military and the great job that he did there and how he was noted for that event. I wasn't aware of that and a lot more. And I've learned a lot about him since. And this is why I'm so pleased to be here to introduce him. And first of all, he's a man of a few words, generally. He doesn't talk about himself, but he talks about people he's with and what they did and what they contributed to this country. I want Jim Palmersheim to know here today that what he's done is he's contributed very much to this country, and I'm proud to be with him. In other words, he's done things here for his country that go unnoticed, but are worthy of every mention, every benefit he can get. And please, therefore, that I learned all this about in time so that we can associate with Jim Palmersheim and bring him here today. I want you to note that at the outset. This isn't something that he sought or anybody sought for him. It's something that my wife and I, in our research, discovered about him that we didn't know, on top of what we already know. So therefore, when I called Howard and said, we have a candidate for the Megellas Award, and told him what it was, and he looked it up and he said, good choice. And Meredith, who just spoke to you, also was notified, and they said it was a good choice. So therefore, we're pleased to be here for that reason. But mostly, we're here to honor Jim Palmersheim. I've learned a lot about him, and one thing is that he resembles, he reflects many of the things that I believe in, and I wrote about it in my book. And many of you said you read my books. And one of the things that I always said about my service and what I did in the military and elsewhere, everybody I served with, was I always led from the front, not from the rear. Now maybe that doesn't mean anything to people who weren't in the military. In the military, you know, if you're up front, you're on the cutting edge of whatever you're doing. And you're exposed to any difficulties, you're the guy that's taking the brunt of it. But by the same token, you gain the respect of your men. And the lead to the front is what really caused the troops to excel, because they are led to the front. I remember one occasion that I write about in the book, and I'll mention this, those who are familiar with the book, in Harrisburg, Belgium, during the Battle of the Bulge, in cold snow, we were ordered to leave the town if we stopped in to receive replacements and refit, to attack the city by the name of Luncheon. We didn't know where it was, except it was on its way to Berlin, and it was a stop that had to be taken before the Berlin, before we could get to Berlin. Anyway, we started out in that event, and we moved forward, and as usual, we had support with us, two anti-tank guns, and two companies were called forward when the enemy came out of the town to beat us head on, we weren't aware of that. And therefore, two companies responded. It was my company, H Company, and I Company, led by Lieutenant Richard Laurier from Massachusetts. And then we got, when we were close to Germans, I moved off in front of the tanks and led the tanks into town. That meant I was supposed to come under fire, right? Well, that was always the case when you lead. That was always the case when you lead. You're out front. And people would say, well, wasn't that a great risk for you? Well, I always put it this way. When you lead from the front, you're taking the brunt of it. But you're leading, and men are following you. And in the process, you gain the respect of your men, because they know if it happened to them, that something didn't go right, you'd be there. And this is what I learned about Jim Palmer. Whatever he did, he led from the front. He didn't get somebody that worked for him or that was being paid by him or anything else. He went personally. That was his experience in the military, and that was the experience since. And so I remember that about him. The other thing was, he responded, as I said I did, to causes greater than myself. Now, what does that mean? Responding to causes greater than ourselves. Those who are in the military knows what that means. That means when you enter the service, however you enter, with the commission, your regular army, ROTC as I was, or you were drafted and went into service, you were there, and that was important. And so it was. That was with us, and so it was with Jim Palmershine. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing in the military and everything else. He knew the risk involved. He knew it would be difficult, but he went about doing it because he believed in a cause greater than himself. That's important. That's important in our military, that all of us who serve in the military, in whatever capacity, that we believe that we believe we're fighting for a cause greater than ourselves. And so with Jim Palmersheim, that was the case. The other thing was that I learned about Jim Palmersheim is that his word is his bond. When he would tell me, for example, Maggie, we're going to get you to Amsterdam, no matter what, we're going to get you there. And then from there on, we made arrangements with the Royal Dutch Air Force that they'll take you into Amsterdam, or they'll take you into Afghanistan, and they'll take you into Afghanistan. And so it was. When I got to Holland, they were there waiting for me. The Royal Dutch Air Force put me up for the night and took me into Amsterdam, and took me into in Afghanistan, where the CIA picked me up and took me down to the battle zone. And so it was that not only did I believe in the cause that I was at, but I had an opportunity to do something else, many opportunities. But I felt very strongly about serving my country in the best way that I could. And I felt as a platoon leader, and had been through all the battles in Africa and Italy and everywhere else, that I was better qualified to undertake things and to order some young birds who were 18 or 19 years old to do for me, which I could have, because I was the first lieutenant at that time. I could have. But I knew better than anybody in my platoon, for example, how to find a minefield and how to disarm mines if we got into danger or anything else. I knew how to do it. So therefore, why would I, at that point, in my age, I'm making a comparison now between me and Jim Palmersheim, why would I, at my age and all that I know how to do, ask somebody to do it that wasn't qualified to do what needed to be done? I did it. And for this event I'm talking about, and you'll read it in the book, I got the Distinguished Service Cross because I did something that, according to the book, the book on men, the leader would ask somebody, one of the squad leaders, to go forward. I never did that because I felt that I was fighting for a cause greater than myself. And if we lost a lieutenant, so what? We had replacements for them too. But we needed the best we had to do the best job. Well, Jim always believed in that as well. He done things that he could have just as well had other people do for him. But he chose that route. So I began to make these comparisons of what he believes in and how he viewed his association with his men and the respect that he earned from it. All of that has come forward to me, and as I became familiar with him in anticipation of this event, I was fortunate enough to be able to read his background. And therefore, I want you to know that I look at a man next to me, not only whether I'm proud to nominate, but I'm pleased to nominate, but that I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely proud that Jim Palmersheim is receiving this award. And I might add, his last two recipients, and some of you were there, were General Petraeus and before that Roger Staubach. And so it's been with everybody who's gotten the award and whose the award is intended for, and the search will begin for next year's recipient. But there's been some outstanding citizen who has contributed to everything we stand for and believe in all of us who are here. And it's for that reason I'm extremely proud, all of you here, to tell you. And I'm very, very happy to be able to say, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you Jim Palmersheim. Thank you.
Come on up, Jim. I'd like to ask that Colonel J.P. Hogan please come forward, too, to make the presentation of the Megellas Award. And
good afternoon, everybody. I'm a cavalry officer, and by definition, I disrupt things. So I'm not going to make the presentation, but I am going to introduce you to the President and CEO of AUSA National. General Ham is a 38-year uniformed soldier, started enlisting as a private in the infantry, got his commission from ROTC at Johns Hopkins University in the Cleveland area, and then went on to enjoy opportunities to command and lead our soldiers at every level through Commander of Africa Command. So, sir, if you could come up here and do us the honor of actually making the presentation.
Boy, after all that, you sure they got the right guy up here? Wow. Very honored, very humbled to stand here before you. And with regard to my good friend, Maggie Megellas, as Maggie mentioned, I met him quite a number of years ago. And the first time I met Maggie, he was, I believe, about 89, a young 89. And he wore his jacket when we met, the 101st Airborne Screaming Eagles. And I swore when he left the office, I said to myself, first of all, gosh, I wish I'm like that when I'm 89, because he looked like he could go and jump out of a perfectly good aircraft and lead from the front and take his troops into action. And he's still doing that today. He's still giving back. He's still making a difference. And I think as I receive this award, it really is about what kind of difference can we all make. And it's about being inspired. So as that video showed, the inspiration for me happened shortly after the events of 9/11. An incredibly terrible tragedy in American Airlines. We lost 2 aircraft. We lost friends, colleagues, passengers. I think every one of us, if we think about that day, all said to ourselves, what can I do? So for me, it was pretty simple. I'm very lucky to have married a 5th grade history teacher who asked if I could bring a restored Huey helicopter that had been flying at a museum to her school, so 5th graders could understand the valor, the courage, the sacrifice of a generation of veterans who never got the proper welcome home, our Vietnam veterans. And after that visit to that school, we knew we had something. We knew there was something we could do even more. And that was to make a film. And quite simply, the treatment for the film was what would happen if you took an aircraft around the country and veterans and family members heard that distinctive sound, that whop, whop, whop of that aircraft. And what would happen if we put them in the aircraft and flew them in the aircraft and gave them an opportunity to just feel what it might have felt to be 19 again. So we did that film, and after that we had an opportunity to take it to the Smithsonian, the National Museum of American History, and that's where I had an opportunity to meet with our CEO, Gerard Arpey. That's where American Airlines really got started with veterans and military initiatives. We delivered that aircraft to the National Museum of American History. It's still there as the largest artifact in a 30-year exhibit. And then the journey really began. I have been so lucky and so fortunate to experience a perception of this country through the lens of those who have been willing to give great sacrifice for it. Through folks like John Peck, our nation's third quadruple amputee, who serves as such an inspiration, having lost both arms, both legs, but now is a double amputee, having received a double arm transplant at Johns Hopkins and continues to give back. I'm so lucky to work with the children of Snowball Express, who have given great sacrifice, having lost a parent. They truly know the price of freedom. I am so lucky to learn so much from them about what a purpose-driven life is like, because they give us, through Snowball Express, an opportunity to know that although there's great sacrifice, there's great opportunity to use that as a catalyst to move forward and give back. I'm so lucky to work with generations of warriors from World War II, Korea, Vietnam. So lucky to help take them to memorials built in their honor. I'm so lucky to work for a company that understands what it is to truly give back in a space where it's not about what you say, think, or feel. It's about what you do. It's a space that embodies what it is to know what patriotism is. So I guess with all of that, the reason I'm standing up here is because I'm just a very, very lucky guy. I'm so lucky to work with foundations like the Gary Sinise Foundation and understand and know Gary not only as a friend, but as a great patriot who's committed his life to giving back. I'm lucky to work as a member of the board of directors for the Air Power Foundation, and a group of dedicated patriots who 24/7 work on making a difference in the community of our military service members, veterans, and their families. There are so many folks out here that I know, that I've worked with, who I'm very, very fortunate to call friends, colleagues, and team members in this effort to make a difference. And most of all today, as I stand here, I'm so lucky to know the Megellas family. I'm so lucky, incredibly lucky, to have gotten to know Maggie and Carol and their family, to know the ethos that Maggie Megellas stands for, that his family lives by, to know that the mission is not over. We've been saying that for a number of years. And to really call you not only a great friend, but also a mentor and my personal hero. Thank you so much for this. Thank you for having me, and to the folks with America's Future Series, thanks for putting this on. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And again, congratulations. Does a lot of things, as you saw, as a result of that video. Jim called me several years ago and said, "Hey, Scott, come on over. You know what Snowball Express is?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what Skyball is? You know what the Air Power Foundation?" I said, "Yes, I know all those." He said, "How would you like to be our Master of Ceremonies for Skyball?" I did 702 events last year. If I had to pick one, and I hate to do this, but if I had to pick one, that would probably be it. Because it means so much, and you see 3,000-4,000 people packed in the American Airlines hangar at DFW, and a couple of big 777s or whatever they decide to use that particular year at either end of the ballroom or this incredible hangar. And you see all these people, close to 20 Medal of Honor recipients, and all these people, past and present, that have served. Amputees, as Jim referred to, it's over the top. So if you want to be a part of something that is absolutely incredible. And hats off to Doug Parker and American Airlines and Jim Parmersheim and everybody that volunteers 100% their services. Set aside the weekend of October 25th, 26th, and 27th. Skyball is on the 27th of October, and it is above and beyond anything that you will ever have been a part of. It is really something. And you know you're making a difference in the lives of those that keep us out of harm's way every single day. So mark it down. It is something special. That said and done, let's move on with our program. We'd certainly like to thank NDIA and AUSA for their support. They're our co-hosts for our lunch here today. So let's put our hands together and thank them for being here. And next, I'd like to get the president of the Lone Star chapter of the National Defense Industry Association to come up. Mike Dietz, come on up. You are next, my friend. It's all yours.
All right. Well, it's been an honor to be a part of the National Defense Industrial Association, and I would love to tell you all about it. But fortunately, we have somebody here who would be even better at telling you all about it. Major General James C. Boozer, U.S. Army retired, is the Chief of Staff of the National Defense Industrial Association. Jim Boozer became Chief of Staff of the NDIA on December 4th, 2017. He came to NDIA after a 35-year career in the U.S. Army, which he retired as a two-star general in October 2015. His last assignment was as commander, U.S. Army Japan Camp Zama in Japan. Before that, he was a deputy commanding general of U.S. Army in Europe, the Army component of U.S. European Command. Jim was a field artilleryman and commanded a brigade in Operation Iraqi Freedom as a part of the task force that secured Baghdad. I was also told to mention that he graduated from the Citadel in 1980 with a bachelor's degree of arts in history. He received a master's degree in strategic studies in 2001 from the U.S. Army War College. So, no further ado, I would like to introduce Jim Boozer. Thank you.
All right, how's everybody doing? Not so good? Yeah, all right, that's an introduction, Mike, that my mama would absolutely be proud of, so thanks. So real quick, I wanted to just spend a couple minutes giving you a quick update or an overview on the National Defense Industrial Association, because I know we have a packed agenda, and we got a couple more awards to present and a couple panels to do, but thank you for this opportunity. Really, thanks go out to J.P. Hogan, Dave Hamilton, Rich Knies, and Mike Dietz for setting this up. General Ham, sir, it is always a pleasure and honor to be here with you, one of my former bosses. And it's an honor and a privilege, quite frankly, to be here amongst you all. And thank you all for what you do every day, for who you are and what you do, because you're all selfless servants, and you all are here because you want to know how we can do better in terms of our national defense and put things in the hands of our war fighters sooner than later. And that's what this is all about. So thank you all for taking time to be here. Sir, Jim Palmersheim, congratulations. Well deserved. Thank you. You honor the man sitting next to you. I can just tell you that right now. So NDIA, it's closing in. Maggie, a lot like, and you've already made this centennial, but NDIA is approaching its centennial. It's 100 years next year, 100-year celebration starting in 2019. And there's some things that have changed, quite frankly, about NDIA. My boss, Hawk Carlisle, likes to say, it ain't your father's NDIA. And what he means by that is, we've taken it on to do a little bit more than just, hold meetings and conferences. But what we're trying to do now is to move into the realm of thought leadership and get involved in the issues that specifically are preventing our war fighters, our men and women that serve in uniform, from getting what they need and when they need it. And so, in that regard, some change. We've also taken the opportunity to set forth some strategic priorities that I hope I can speak to you about a little bit later on in the panel that are going to focus us for the next 3 to 5 years, all geared toward ensuring our men and women have what they need. And we think that's important. I mean, very important. And I think they will all resonate with you very, very much so. Here's what has not changed about NDIA. The fact that we take this very seriously is that we can be the honest broker. To bring the Department of Defense, government, academia, and members of the defense industry together in legal and ethical forums. To champion issues, convene those forums, and build collaborative teams. And so you all allow us to do that, and we will never forget that, because you are the reason that we exist and that we're able to do what we do. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to take part in this. We've got 2 more very special awards to present, and I hope to get out and see a lot of you here for the remainder of the program. So thank you very, very much.
Our thanks to the Major General. He's going to stay up here because we're going to get to our 3 awards. Talk about a trifecta. Think about this. American Airlines, Boeing, and Toyota. I mean, those are as household as it gets. And all 3 are looked upon as just the creme de la creme. So we've got a pretty good trifecta for you today. And we're talking about our 5-star award recipients. Let me tell you a little something about who they are, what they're all about, specifically what this award is for. The America's Future Series 5-Star Award is presented to companies and their leaders who demonstrate extraordinary support of our military. This recognition is based on a company's veteran hiring and philanthropic efforts. The first recipient of the 5-Star Award, Ross Perot Sr., and since that time, 25 different organizations, all well-known, small, some large, have been recognized for going above and certainly beyond in seeking out, hiring, developing, and retaining veterans. Their charitable contributions in support of worthy causes which empower, honor, and certainly aid military families, exemplary. And today we honor 3 more organizations that embody the true spirit of this award and the outstanding organizations that have been honored in the past. I told you the 3. We have videos of a couple of them, but we've already shared with you through Jim Palmersheim's efforts what American Airlines does day in and day out for our military. So let me simply say, please welcome the CEO of the world's largest airline, American Airlines, right here in the great state of Texas, Mr. Doug Parker.
All right, well, thank you. It's an honor to be here. To say the least, I stand here and representing 120,000 people of American Airlines, over 7,000 of whom are either active or retired military, one of whom is Jim Palmersheim, who we're incredibly proud of. When you fly American, you see that we let active military board first. You saw on the video everything else we do under Jim's leadership, things like Skyball, Snowball Express, Gary Sinise Foundation support, Medal of Honor Foundation support, Salute to the Troops. The list goes on and on. We do those things, one, because it's the right thing, but primarily because our team demands it. They insist, people like Jim insist that American Airlines support what's important to them, and we are proud to do it. So we're really proud to be here, in support of Jim, honored to accept this award on behalf of the team and everything American does with Jim's leadership and support. So thank you very much.
Get a little photo op, Doug. While we're doing that, I had Doug on my radio, one of my radio shows a couple of weeks ago. Talk about exemplary leadership and above and beyond, innovation, collaboration, it's all there, and a great culture. So our congratulations one more time to Doug Parker and American Airlines. Next, we're going to introduce to you the CEO of Toyota Financial Services, Mike Rolfe.
Well, good afternoon. It's my privilege to be here to accept this award on behalf of Toyota North America. And I have to tell you, I am honored and humbled to be here. And Lieutenant Colonel Palmersheim, congratulations to you. And Maggie, what an unbelievable story you have to tell. I'm extra proud to be here today. My son is active duty. He's captain in the Air Force, following in the footsteps of my father, who served proudly in World War II. So we are very happy to be here today. I just want to mention a couple things about Toyota. About 5 years ago, we partnered with a program called Hiring Our Heroes. And Hiring Our Heroes is just what it sounds like. It was all about helping heroes who have served our country transition into the civilian world. And it started with the premise that they needed help and they needed mentoring. And we developed with this partner a software that allowed companies to list their jobs, and literally thousands of companies have done that. It did provide mentoring. It helped them with their resume preparation. It provided online activities. It provided job fairs. And since that program has started, over 28,000 direct jobs are a result of that effort. So we are very proud of our partnership. Thank you. It was led by a retired Toyota executive by the name of Don Esmond, who was the senior vice president. At the time he retired, he was a Marine helicopter pilot in Vietnam and proudly served his country and always reminded us, as Jim, apparently you remind American Airlines to never forget our responsibility. I want to mention one other thing, and that's that we have a business partnering group at Toyota. It's called Toyota Veterans Association, and I have a couple tables full of Toyota Veterans Association members over here. We have over 200 members, and really the purpose is to make sure that we're doing all we can to support our veterans. We recently participated in a program, and I'm very happy to hear that Roger Staubach is a former recipient. We partnered with Roger on a program called Allies in Service. And what we did was we tested a program where we provide mock interviews for the military members coming out of the service to get them ready to interview for jobs in civilian life. And it was a great success, and we plan to do many, many more. So again, on behalf of Toyota, thanks all of you who have served and are serving our country. We are very proud to do all we can to support the veterans in the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike. Congratulations. And again, our thanks to Toyota for all it continues to do for our military and our veterans. Now, our final recipient of the 5-Star Award. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the CEO of Boeing Global Services, Stan Deal. Come on up, Stan.
Short and sweet, I love it. Short and sweet. That's the way we like to roll, short and sweet. No, on behalf of the men and women at Boeing, 140,000 strong, and what that video was attempting to portray was the 20,000 veterans that are in and among the Boeing workforce. We want to say thank you, and we also want to say congratulations to Jim. On a personal note, you inspired me at the Bob Hope Gala to do more, and that's what Boeing's going to do. I want to thank all the veterans in the room for your selfless service. It's just an honor to be among you. A year ago, we had a journey at Boeing to start a new division, largely centered around sustainment and the life cycle of our products, both for our great customers commercially, but also for the defense. And we had to pick a home, and we picked the home in Texas. It was an easy decision. And while we, as a company, serve our customers through life cycle, it's also a core belief we have to serve our community and be a part of it. And the core of community service is around our veterans. We were very proud to join with American and drop behind you on the Air Power, the Skyball, and we know we always need to do more, so this year we'll step up for more around that event. We've gone deep into the community. We continue to give. NPower has been a partner just signed up for participation with the George Bush Institute. And the pillars for us are continuing to work the transition assistance, continuing to work around the family unit in the community, and ensuring that our veterans are respected and the capabilities that they learn in the military are brought into the workforce. So with that, on behalf of Boeing, again, I want to say thank you. It's quite an honor to receive this award, and we'll continue to do more. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stan, very much, and our thanks to Boeing as well. I think we would be remiss if we just didn't take 5 seconds and put our hands together collectively for our 3 recipients of our 5-star awards. American Airlines, Boeing, and Toyota. Remember them. You need a car? Go buy a Toyota. You need an airplane? Go see Boeing. You want to ride in an airplane? You got to go someplace? Go see American, right? Yeah. We'll help them all because they help us every single day. All right, where's David Hamilton? David, where might you be? Oh, there he is. All right. The man that is responsible for all of us being here today, the founder of this organization. Take it away, my friend. It's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have the distinct honor of recognizing someone who has been a longtime friend and supporter of the America's Future series, someone who has been a longtime steward of our nation's resources, been a leader who has showed great principles and values, and as a true patriot. I met Congressman Sessions roughly 8 years ago at our first event with Mr. Pickens, and since that time he has either spoken at or been the host of more than 1 or 2 of our events, and simply being associated with Congressman Sessions has given this organization great gravitas and has enabled us to bring together the kinds of people that you see here today. And so I'd like to bring up Congressman Sessions to provide a few remarks. Great friend of the America's Future series and a great American.
Thank you very much. Boy, it made me feel good walking through the parking lot and seeing the stickers on the backs of all the cars and trucks. A couple Toyota trucks that said, built in Texas. All Americans, and made me feel good. Maggie, good to see you. Carol, good to see you. Meredith, hope you're doing well. Doug, good to see you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking time to be here today. Now more than ever, it is important that we remember the men and women of the military. I represent the 32nd Congressional District of Texas. I serve as chairman of the House Rules Committee. Every bill that goes to the floor has to come through my committee, and we're struggling. We're struggling mightily in Washington, not only to keep up our faith and confidence in the things that we said we would do, but we're struggling in a larger way because the world has gotten bigger, not smaller. Our adversaries rise up on a regular basis, and the daunting task of us keeping America strong and great takes a lot of money. As each of you know, back in 2011 when those pesky Republicans won the majority, we had talked for years about how spending ourselves into the demise of this country, including the, as you remember, the chief of chairman of the Armed Services Committee had told Armed Services had told us that the greatest threat was America not being able to pay its bills. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017. United States military was held at the same levels that they essentially were in 2010. There was one period of time where Mac Thornberry and I added $30 billion out of what was called OCO, which is an Overseas Contingency Fund. Other than that, the military was held in check. Last year, actually the last 14 months, we've had more military members die from training accidents than we have in combat. We have at least 4 known large ships that are stealth ships that have been collided with in the general waterways of the world. They're stealth, they're hard to see. People run into you if you're not careful. It's caused loss of a 3-star, a 2-star, and a bunch of other very brave naval officers. It's a transition, it's a changing world. Sometimes we expect people to do more with less. I'm pleased to tell you that a fight occurred, and while many people are worried about where we're headed, we got the military more money this last 2 weeks ago, and we expect them to do great things with it. The men and women of the United States military men and women of the military have been at the end of the spear, the tip of the spear, for a number of years. You now have seen en masse the stories of bravery, of sacrifice. You've seen the stories that tear your heart out about the men and women who have come back, and the stories that are told as they come back into reentry. You've heard the stories and seen where the VA has not lived up to the promise of the American people. So the question is, how do we still sustain a fighting force? How do we make sure that the men and women who would be, as my son is 1 year in the United States Navy, he serves out in Pearl. I have a very difficult time hearing him complain, which he doesn't very much. How do we sustain America to be great again and get this entire transition done? The bottom line is, it is up to you, and because of you. You are the people who regularly, not just in public conversation, in private conversation, but in consultation with the American people, talk about how important it is to protect America, to project ourselves around the world, because without the projection around the world, we would see what happened when we came home, and that's what 9/11 was about. We were taken advantage of. We were surprised. We did not even recognize what was about to happen, even though we should have. So for me to be here today is actually a viewpoint that I have about policy. I grew up in the mid-'70s in college. I had authors and people I read about, philosophies. I grew up under Ronald Reagan, not Jimmy Carter. I knew the difference between colors that ran and colors that don't run. I've understood the difference between character and strength, and I know that we are better when we project not only strength but resolve. But it is you, it is the American people that will determine the direction we're going. And I want to tell you, I stand with you, and I need you. We need you to understand that there is no freedom that's always completely won, that the Russians are the greatest threat militarily against freedom in the world. And the president's going to have to understand, if he doesn't talk about North Korea, it won't be as big of an issue as we make it. But what we do have to understand is that we have to have the resolve to have the greatest training, the greatest weapon systems, and the greatest people that have the will and the desire to protect this country. I normally wear either this pin that says "Come and Take It" or an F-35 that I describe as peace through superior firepower. But either way, I appreciate and stand with you and want you to know how humbled and honored I am to be not only in front of you, but in front of Maggie again and Carol. God bless each of you, and I look forward to any remarks we make later. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman Sessions. Thank you for being our honorary host and all of your support. And thank you for your leadership and the direction and the resolve that you portray on behalf of our nation. I'd like to bring up Meredith Walker to moderate a roundtable discussion, a little panel discussion. I'd like to bring up Congressman Sessions again, and Major General Boozer and General Ham. And we'll have a little discussion here, and then at the end, perhaps a few questions.
So as you all continue to enjoy your meals and the folks around your table, we'd like to have a brief discussion on American leadership, our military, and causes greater than ourselves. I've been very honored to work with Congressman Sessions on a number of initiatives over the last several years for our nation's military, for international relations, and also for the work he's done bringing such great corporations to our North Texas area. American Airlines has been here many years, of course, but Boeing and Toyota also. And we are so grateful for you three major corporations' leadership, not only in innovation, in American economic, financial growth, but especially for your support of military and veterans. So, Congressman Sessions, let's begin with you. When you think about America and leading from the front, what are some of the main changes you would like to see in this session of Congress?
The United States, thank you, Meredith. The United States Congress is struggling a number of ways. Our partnership that is based in the Constitution says that we have a House and a Senate. And I'm not here to beat up any one person, but I am here to beat up cloture. Cloture, which is a senatorial courtesy in many bodies around the United States, upper bodies, is designed to not only cause deliberation, but to cause people to probably work together. And that is a noble reason, except it is in reverse. It requires a supermajority to even bring up an issue. For those of you that do not understand cloture requires in a body of 100 people in the United States Senate, 60 people have to agree to begin a debate, to stop a debate, and to vote. Does not require the vote to be 60, but it does require 60 people to say they want to vote. In the House of Representatives, I have the honor of serving on the Rules Committee. I've served for 20 years on the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is a committee that is made up of 9 majority and 4 minority, and it's essentially what cloture is to the Senate. We want to vote on starting, stopping, debating, amending, whatever we would choose to do goes through a process where the majority determines that process. For the last 6 years, I've served as the chairman of the committee, and unfortunately, what we have seen is huge amounts of legislation that come back to us that has not been vetted, came from a very narrow and prescriptive agreement, and was done to hurry up and get it done, to do it, and it has not served us well. On the other side, it has served us well, because the body, the House of Representatives, has decided that all spending, as the Constitution says, all spending starts in the House. And we said we were not going to spend any more money, no matter what the former president said to us. So we did control that outcome. We controlled that we were not going to spend more than what we had the previous year. The downside to that is that much of what we do requires 60 votes in the Senate if we do something. Doing nothing requires very little. Doing something requires a lot. So what I would say to you is this, is that leadership under a constitutional government, is very difficult, and we're making it look that way. I would say to you that during an election year, if you have opinions, now's the time to give an opinion to any senator running about changing what there might be their cloture rules. Because what it does is it means that everything is done with 60 votes, which means instead of it being something that would be our policy, it's their policy. It's on their time frames. And so I think as policy people, it'd be wise for you to know, while leadership in one body might be pretty secure, negotiating with 6 of the other side is very costly. So I would just encourage you to know the rules of the game. I'm chairman of the Rules Committee. We know the rules. We abide by the rules. But we get our work done, and I think we need to expect other people to do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
One shot at my colleagues on the Senate side. There are over 400 pieces of legislation waiting for them to get cloture on to even begin the debate. Thank you.
General Ham, as technology continues to rapidly advance and tomorrow's battlefields become even more complex, how is Army doctrine evolving to meet those challenges? And tell us a bit more about what you're doing at AUSA to help that.
Oh, thanks, Meredith. And Congressman, if I could just kind of publicly say, thanks for your unwavering support of the women and men who serve in uniform to defend this country. We rely on you.
Yes,
and thank you very much for your leadership.
Yes,
It's also very nice to be here with my old friend Jim Boozer and Colonel Megellas as a fellow infantryman who began his service in the 82nd Airborne Division. It's wonderful to be with you, sir. You started as a lieutenant. I started as a private. But it's a great place to have served, and I'm honored to be here with you. As Meredith said, I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Association of the United States Army, and our job is to be a voice for the Army and to support soldiers. It's as simple as that. And if you support soldiers like we do, you got a place with the AUSA. We're privileged to be here with the National Defense Industrial Association to co-sponsor and co-chair this event. Chairman Sessions said it exactly right in his opening remarks. The world has changed, and the world is an increasingly dangerous place. About 30 years ago, in the collapse of the Soviet Union, there was a lot of talk about a so-called peace dividend. And frankly, the U.S. Armed Forces were put through a peace dividend. The challenge was, the problem is that our adversaries did not experience a peace dividend. In fact, they reinvested. And as well, our defense spending was reduced and flat for the time that the chairman talked about. Our potential adversaries, invested in capabilities that challenge us in many fronts. So the environment that America faces today, the environment that America's armed forces face today, is far more dangerous than even just a few years ago. And the chairman called them exactly right. And Secretary Mattis has identified this in the National Defense Strategy, identifying Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, and the continuing plague of extremist and terrorist organizations as the threats with which the United States Armed Forces must be prepared to deal. That requires us to have a significant investment in modernization that's been enabled by the defense spending that was approved by the Congress and signed into law by the President just about 2 weeks ago. That will significantly improve the capabilities of all of America's armed forces. For the Army, the service that we at AUSA focus on, the current strategic environment creates and presents a number of complex challenges. It's no longer sufficient for the Army to operate in the traditional means of and exclusively in land warfare. So the Army has crafted and is employing now an operating concept and a doctrine called multi-domain battle. It's not really a significant change, but it's of how the Army it's a change in how the Army thinks about operating in this complex environment. It's a recognition that the Army must simultaneously operate not only in the land domain, but also in air and space and in cyberspace, and indeed sometimes in the maritime domain as well. An example of what that means. In Europe, where General Boozer and I had the privilege of serving together, the Russians have a near stranglehold on the 3 Baltic states, the leaders of whom just met recently with the president. If there were to be armed conflict in that region, be given the presence of very sophisticated and modernized Russian systems, very difficult for the United States Navy, very difficult for the United States Air Force to penetrate that. So what the Army is developing are long-range, precise, ground-based systems that can open the door, if you will, for the Navy, for the Air Force. Again, a different way of thinking about fighting that causes the Army to fight in all domains all the time. The most significant challenge of this is not only the acquiring of systems that meet that need, but the developing of leaders who think differently, think more imaginatively, are much more agile and adaptive. And we used to say in our time that we wanted leaders who were comfortable in ambiguity. We need now leaders who thrive in ambiguity and in complex situations. So that's a bit of how the Army is addressing this new security environment.
Yeah. Thank you, General. And Major General Boozer, could you tell us a little bit more about your work at the NDIA? You mentioned the transition to thought leadership. So if you could expand upon the thought leadership work of NDIA and how this will help develop advanced systems, agile leaders, and also work with our Congress to make sure the military is getting what we need.
Okay, Meredith, thank you. Hey, once again, it is an honor and a privilege to be here with you all. I got to tell you, I'm a product of the South Carolina education system, and I learned more from these events being with you all than you can shake a stick at. Congressman Sessions, sir, thank you. Thank you for your support, as General Ham mentioned. And I can't believe I am sitting on the stage here with both General Ham and Congressman Sessions. But, so someone please take lots of pictures so I can send them back home. That's all I got to say about that. So, I alluded to the fact that what we're trying to do at NDIA now is to really take part in this strategic dialogue that our nation needs to have. We developed 6 strategic priorities that we got feedback from our members across the defense industry, across from government, both DOD and in Congress. And I'll tell you, Meredith, one of the first things before I talk about these 6, and I like the way you phrase your questions, this is all about participation. Participation in this dialogue about the security of this nation and how we go forward. My mama used to tell me and my brothers all the time, Jimmy, you got to participate. And I didn't really know what she was talking about, but she was really talking to me and my brothers about participating in our education and digging into that. And she would use this along with this phrase. She says, you got to participate or you're going to be lost like last year's Easter egg. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be lost like last year's Easter egg. And I know you don't. And that's why it's important for you as Americans to participate in this dialogue. Our first strategic priority at NDIA is, and this is a hard one, but with the help of Congressman Sessions and others, I'm the eternal optimist. I see light at the tunnel, and it's advancing budget stability because that drives everything we need to do in terms of providing the right funding for our services to execute, plan, and prepare their programs and provide the defense industry base what we're looking at doing over the horizon. And this funding bill we got for 2018, although a little late, is one of the biggest spikes we're going to see in terms of modernization and RDTE and the procurement accounts. This is huge. This is a window of opportunity for us all, and we need to take note of it. And we're very optimistic about what 2019 will bring. So budget stability is very important to us all as a nation. And we, what they say about inflection points is you never really know. You went through an inflection point until it's too late. Well, we may be fast approaching an inflection point. Because if you take budget stability, and if we can move the needle on number 2 of our strategic priorities, and that's reform the acquisition process, put a little agility in it, in the way that we do acquisition, so that we can get stuff in our warfighters' hands sooner than later. If we can do those two things, move the needle in those two areas, I think we have a window of opportunity to regain this competitive edge that we've lost over the past several years because we've spent money on trying to keep our services up in terms of readiness and haven't had the accounts in terms of funding to modernize and pour into some research and development. So, great opportunity here. Great opportunity coming here from my perspective. We have 4 other priorities. Again, I think they all will resonate with you as well, and that's foster small business success. NDIA is composed of about 1,650 corporate members, about 80,000 individual members. A large portion of those corporate members, about 75%, are our small and medium-sized businesses. And so we're going to focus on that area of small business. The other one is to strengthen the defense industrial base and its workforce. Very important. We have to regain the edge. We have lost some capacity in our defense industrial base, and it's important that we reinvigorate that, get our young folks interested in STEM, and bring them on, because the next generation of those folks working in the defense industrial base are right behind us. We need to get them ready and get them prepared. We also want to expand our outreach in terms of security cooperation, foreign military sales, and direct commercial sales, because whatever we do in the future, we will not do alone. We will do with our partners. So, Meredith, those are some of the things that we're going to work on. We're going to put some metrics and goals attached to those so we can report out to the members. And we're always looking for your feedback on how we might be able to do that better and where we can focus our efforts. So thank you.
Meredith, if I could, I want to take just a second. That what you've heard up here, I need to provide a little bit more data and detail too. A year ago, I was, as part of a trip that we were making where I visit the military, I was in Hawaii and met Admiral Harris and General Brown. I want to comment on, I have 2 comments about the trip. General Brown was very forthright with his assessment of what his needs were, and I did not mean to correct him, but it turned out that way. He said it's time to do away with sequestration on the military. And I said, well, with great respect, sir, we have not really done anything with sequestration. We've done it through CRs. We've taken months and months and months and months to make decisions. What the chain of command needs to ask for is, give me the money October 1st. Whatever you're going to give me, give it to me October 1st, and let me manage that money for the year. It was a head snap to him. And I think he brought that forward to the Joint Chiefs and said, let's get our money. Somehow we have not turned that cycle around. You cannot give the military, you should not give the military, even if you give them more money, but to give it to them on March the 22nd and tell them between March the 22nd and September 30th, go spend all this money. That is not the right way to do it. Second thing, Admiral Harris. And by the way, I was so impressed with these 2 young leaders of our military. Admiral Harris is, I think, to a point that I got to understand well, and that is our military leaders understand around the globe exactly what would happen, what their duties are, how they work with each other, what comes first, second, third, who backs up each other, who shares intel, what would go first. He was impressive. And to a point, I understood it. Their job is to protect the mainland of the United States of America. And they are projecting their force to make sure that at all cost that they deter enemies from entering not only to harm the United States, but to harm its people. And I will tell you, I've never really seen the kind of leadership as embodied with those 2 young men, Admiral Harris and General Brown, that I've seen in a long time. And whether we had an understanding or misunderstanding about when to get the money, I'm telling you, they are true leaders, and we are lucky.
As we are entering an era of great power competition, I would like each of you to comment on that, how America can regain our true leadership and be leading from the front during this time of transition.
Well, thanks, Barrett. So I think I think one of the big changes that occurred this year, a couple of weeks ago, again, with the passing of the budget, for the first time in a long time, in my opinion, we have a strategy-based budget rather than a budget-based strategy. That's really important. And Secretary Mattis in the National Defense Strategy has laid out three main priorities of restoring readiness, to rebuild the military capability that the Congressman just spoke about in the Pacific, in Europe, in the Middle East, but across the globe, to restore America's leadership. Second priority, to strengthen alliances. As General Boozer said, the United States is never going to operate by itself. We need strong alliances, and that's a high priority for Secretary Mattis. And the third point, to reform the Defense Department's business practices, ranging from acquisition reform to get the needed materials in the hands of troops faster, but also to reform personnel systems that have served us well, but frankly are based in an industrial-based armed forces vice an information-based armed forces. So I think those are those priorities that our Secretary of Defense has laid out, enabled now and supported by a budget that the Congress and the President have provided. I think that, to me, those are the first necessary steps and conditions so that America is well postured to counter peer or near peer adversaries into the future.
Yeah, so what 2 stars do is reinforce what 4 stars say, right? And so I just want to reinforce, what you heard General Ham say. So the National Defense Strategy, man, that document is full of protein. It's one of the first, and low on carbs, okay? And it's one of the first documents I've seen that really lay out, where we need to head. And so, those strategic priorities of advancing budget stability, moving acquisition reform, down the road, they're underpinned by a defense strategy now. And so there's that opportunity. We have a strategic document that underpins a lot of the things that this nation needs to do and move forward. And so we should seize the opportunity to do so. Just seize this opportunity. It's a big window and it's opening, and we should all take notice of it.
I would say that perhaps we have provided the proper increase that we needed to. It's a 2-year agreement deal. It will allow the military to make longer-term decisions, so to speak. But we must never forget that our adversaries, mostly the Russians, are spending an incredible amount of money, not just on their army components, because of Europe, I'm thinking, but also in R&D. And this new missile that they have is an entirely different concept. And it is a threat against anyone that they would choose to use it against. There is no necessarily answer or antidote to that yet. No military can exist without good intel. And what we've got to do is give a little bit more money, because what we're doing is replacement parts right now. That's essentially what this was about. New aircraft that has been around a long time. Now, there were 25 drones, big drones that were in there. There were a lot of other new F-18 type things, and helicopters. But we've got to spend more money on R&D, and we've got to unshackle ourselves from bleeding the military and allowing them to do, I think, more R&D to be prepared. to wisely spend the money. So I hope that your discussions, not just that I have with my colleagues, but discussions from a really an intellectual process, is to don't, as we heard about in Patton, don't forget the Russians.
Thank you. So for my final question, I would like to return to the reason we're all here today, which was the Megellas Award for Jim Palmersheim and for our 3 corporations who support military and veterans and have the 5-star awards, American Airlines, Boeing, and Toyota. All of those, I think, also represent a very great public-private partnership in their support of our military. When I look back at World War II and we see that after World War II, the U.S. had a great economic takeoff in time, as an economist, I often try to discern what were the different reasons for that. And one reason that was probably the main one that I don't think economists can track, and that's the character of the men and women who came out of World War II and then joined our nation's labor force, worked together, built great companies, and made our country great. So I'd like each of you, as a final comment, to talk about those values that our military instills in people and how those of us who have not worn the cloth of this nation can be inspired. Thank you.
Meredith, thanks. We talk a lot about modernization and the need, and it is an absolute need, to equip America's armed forces with capabilities, with modernized equipment, systems that outmatch our potential adversaries. That's very important. It doesn't mean anything if you don't have the right people. And so for the America's armed forces, we say in the Army that the soldier is America's asymmetric advantage over any potential adversary. It is the heart and soul of the American soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman that sets us apart from any other armed force and from any of our adversaries. So I think that the capabilities, the values that American servicemen and servicewomen learn through their commitment, as Colonel Megellas said, to a cause that is larger than themselves. That's what makes us strong. That's what makes America's armed forces the most powerful force on the planet. They can't do that without you. America's soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, and Coast Guardsmen, they serve, they fight, because they know that Americans stand behind them. So my encouragement to you would be find ways to do that. The 3 companies recognized today, Mr. Colonel Palmersheim, they exemplify that in their daily lives of thanking those who have served and going beyond just a handshake and a pat on the back, but in real positive means of demonstrating the value of military service to this country. And I think the more of that we can do, the stronger we will be.
Meredith, thanks. So, first thing I would say is make no mistake about it that the men and women that serve in uniform today, your sons and daughters, our sons and daughters that serve, are also, in my opinion, a great generation. Just like the great generations that came out of World War I and World War II, as Meredith mentioned. They, in their own right, are terrific young people. If you think about it, a lot like the ones that served in World War I and World War II, they continue to raise their right hand and take an oath to serve their nation, knowing full well that they're going to be called to serve in harm's way. And they're doing it every day across this great nation. And whether you believe it or not, but I think you do, I look across the folks sitting in this room, and I look across the ones serving in the defense industrial base. You are an extension of our military force structure. Because as General Ham said, you allow them to do what they need to do. You give them what they need when we do ask them to serve in harm's way. So thank you. Continue to do that and continue to look for ways to serve. Thank you.
The answer I will give is thank goodness for these companies that we've spoken about that do hire veterans and value men and women who've sacrificed. It is more apparent to me than perhaps many of you, even though I'm sure at night you discuss it around the table. We're in a cultural war in this country. Our country's engaged in a cultural war that I had hoped we would never come to. That cultural war is not just of haves and have-nots. It's of those that want to do whatever they want to do versus rule of law and versus common sense. We watched America go from about 3rd to 24th in the world of doing business. That's a measurement of reinvestment, IPOs, new startups, ideas. It's a whole bunch of additives of business. I spent 17 years in business. I get it. We slid to 24th. We are fighting our way now back because of the tremendous tax cuts that are going to place America in a strength position instead of weakness position. Instead of being 24th, they're having a fight with us now, and competition is good. But I would also say to you that we're fighting a cultural war of our people who lack the will to stand for anything. They have a lack of will to go and do the basic things that are right, not just morality. I'm talking about getting up and wanting to go to work. I've never missed a day of work in 38 years. I grew up throwing a paper route. I'm an Eagle Scout. My dad made sure that the way we lived and thought and did things, by the way, for you who don't know, my dad was a federal judge for 14 years and the FBI director, served in the United States Air Force, a pilot, a captain who deeply believed in mission and purpose. We've just got a bunch of people who are being raised without a will. There's no overriding viewpoint of what their life is about, and so they're willing to accept anything. I came from a conference this morning where only about 9% of seniors that graduate can run 1.5 miles without stopping. They can't even pass tests. The amount of people who are going to 3 out of 5 children born today will have diabetes, severe diabetes, by the time they're 60 years old. Obesity, people sitting on their can, parents who have the same problem, and they look at each other and think it looks okay. We could sit here and think about how we're in trouble. It's up to us to lead. We need to lead to the best. We need to expect that people will get their job done when they say they'll do it. They need to overcome difficult circumstances. How about if our parents and grandparents gave in? How about if they could not face the challenge? And so it's going to require the men and women that are in this room to actually not just to sharpen their pencil or their sword, but actually their mind and begin challenging people and expect better. And I will tell you that if America does this, we can once again lead the world. But if we fail to answer the bell, then we will live up to the same axiom that Senator Phil Gramm spoke about years ago when he christened. I was not there. I've heard the story of christening the USS Ronald Reagan. And as they smashed the champagne bottle, Phil Gramm gave the speech that said, you know, this is an instrument of peace, not of war. This is an instrument of good behavior, not threat of force. This is an instrument of showing our friends and allies who can get the job done. And he said, someday we may end up, as some would want, to have peace for generations. It's happened before. But there will be a time also that we need to prepare. And he said, this aircraft carrier is preparation and doing the right thing. He said one day the lion and the lamb may lie down with each other to form a peace and a bond. But when that day comes, I want America to be the lion and not the lamb. That has been my philosophy since before then. And it comes through people accepting sacrifice, not taking the easy road or shirking a task or responsibility. It comes through character, leadership, and development. It comes back to, yes, even just telling the truth, showing up and doing the best you can, and not accepting that if you didn't do your best, that you offer an excuse. Ladies and gentlemen, it is up to us. It is up to us. I need your help, and count on me to be there to help you. Gentlemen, thank you for your service. God bless you.
Thank you all. No, you're hired.
I want to thank Meredith Walker for leading an outstanding panel there. Those were excellent questions. General Ham, great comments. I mean, definitely gave us a lot to think about from an industrial-based perspective. And Congressman Sessions, very inspirational. So thank you. Jim Boozer, made me proud to be a member of NDIA. So thank you for your comments today. So with that, thank you everyone for coming. For those who are involved in the panel, just come and see David and I, and we'll look forward to seeing you all at the next event. Thank you.